Today in the garage, we're recording live at ACT Expo 2026 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here at this hall, the show floor is filled with technologies of all kinds, from fleets to fuel technologies and trucks and everything. And one of the things we're learning as we talk to more and more customers is the diversity of needs of different fleets and their operations. We're seeing cases where fleets are interested to understand autonomous vehicles and autonomous technologies, how they're helping to optimize their operations. We're seeing how different drivetrains, from electric to biodiesel to conventional diesel and everything in between, can affect their sustainability and their operations. And we're seeing how fleets deal with different kinds of issues, ranging from safety, driver behavior, anticipating breakdowns, and even anticipating driver problems in the future. To talk about that, we wanted to bring on a guest who's working with one of the leading fleets in the industry. And so our guest today is Matt McLelland, who runs innovation and sustainability at Covenant Logistics. Matt joined us to talk about their experience as a fleet, the technologies they care about, and what they're looking to use in the future. And he tells some really interesting stories about practical uses of how technology can benefit fleets. It's a very interesting conversation. Let's go. Welcome to the garage. I'm John Heinlein, Chief Marketing Officer with Sonatus. We're here at ACT Expo 2026 in Las Vegas and excited to be visiting with Matt. Matt, welcome to the garage.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you. We appreciate you spending some time with us.
Yeah.
Can you start by telling us about you and your background?
Sure. Yep. Matt McLelland. I do sustainability and innovation for Covenant Logistics. We are for those of you who don't know, a third-party logistics provider. We have warehousing, trucking, freight brokerage, managed transportation, but we have a lot of trucks, right? And that's why I'm here. I'm here to look at alternative fuels. I'm here to look at all the things that I need to know about to present customers greener, cleaner, leaner solutions than what we're doing today. There's also some other things too that fall under the innovation umbrella, but for the most part, I'm here for the trucks, and I'm here for here for some of the AI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we'll talk about all those things.
Yeah.
So, and tell us about your background. What did you do before? What's your background from?
Oh, wow. It's sort of funny. I was in IT for a long time, like our mutual friend.
Yeah.
That introduced us in the first place.
Lawrence was also on the podcast.
Lawrence was on the podcast. Yeah, go Lawrence. So I was in IT for pretty much all my career. I ended up running an innovation lab at a 3PL, a competitor to ours, where the idea was we had 10,000 square feet to fill with the latest and greatest technologies that were going on in the warehouse. Robots, drones that scanned inventory, like all these things that customers were paying us millions of dollars a year to come in and provide, the best solutions available. They wanted to see all the stuff that was out there on the edge. I did that for this company, Kinco Logistics, for several years, ended up pivoting and going to Covenant. And so Covenant's where I've been for the last 8 years. I think I came in more of an innovation IT role, but it pivoted to be more sustainability probably back in like 2018, 19.
My career is the same. And I started out with one background and I pivoted to adjacent things. Yeah. And it's funny how your career path works.
I didn't apply for this job. It evolved. In fact, one day our CEO said, let's talk about your role, your KPIs. Let's talk about your title. And, it's kind of a longer story. But at the time, there were lots of questions about autonomy. There were lots of questions about electric trucks. There were lots of questions about alternative fuels. There was a lot of that stuff, John, that we were already doing. This was a way just to kind of formalize it, put it together, put it under a title, put it under a department, and that's where we are today.
It's fantastic. We've got to start by tell us a fun fact about you. We also like to know our guests.
Oh, wow. Fun fact. I'm a really interesting, I fly hang gliders and dive with sharks once a month and everything. But I was in Antarctica in January on a National Geographic expedition ship.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was so cool.
And how long was the trip for?
We were there for 12 days. Took 2 days to get over the Drake Passage, 5 days there, and then 2 days to get to Drake Passage, 6 days there, and then 2 days to get back.
Well, that's a pretty incredible story.
Yeah, the Drake Passage is one of the most craziest, crossings ever. It's where three oceans come together and there's these giant waves. And we actually didn't have bad weather. We had great weather. So it was a fantastic trip.
That's incredible. I can't touch that at all. So I'll tell you a different one.
It's not a competition.
You mentioned diving. I'm a big scuba diver.
Oh, good. Fantastic.
I'm actually a former scuba instructor. That's another story for another time.
Fantastic.
I've done lots of live aboard scuba diving,
Me too,
which is great fun. So
Love it.
There you go. So there's
My
our
wife
connection.
does it. My son does it. It's a family affair.
There's our connection.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I knew I liked you.
All right. So we're here at the show, ACT. It's full of the most incredible, diverse commercial vehicle technology of all shapes and sizes, electric and biofuels and trucks, big, small, tractors, trailers. What's the technology that's really exciting you right now, and what's on your mind right now?
It's interesting. There's, there's no one thing, right? I mean, we like to say that in my quiver of solutions, right, I'm going to have some diesel trucks. I'm going to have some electric trucks. I'm going to have some CNG trucks. Right now, we're a fleet that is mostly diesel trucks. In fact, it's all diesel trucks. We're long haulers, which means we go long distances. Sometimes we have two drivers in the trucks. We can go up to 1,000 miles a day. There are not a lot of decarbonized solutions that will take us the distance that we need to go. Also, pretty much anything that's not diesel is generally, but not all the time, more expensive. And so these are really hard conversations we have to have with our shippers. They want to know what sorts of solutions can you bring to the table. It's my job to kind of know what they all are, present those, talk about the cost increase, talk about the cost benefits, and we just sort of go through those. And we have some electric yard hustlers, which is kind of new for us in the last few years. We're looking at Class 8 electrification right now. In fact, in a few weeks, we're going to be doing a demo of the Tesla Semi, which we're super excited about.
That's great. So it sounds like you're really putting your ear to the ground, watching these technologies, understanding where do they make sense, why do they make sense, when do they fit into your fleet, when do they fit in your portfolio?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Now, and talking about technology, I mean, the podcast, we look at software, we look at artificial intelligence, especially. How do you see technology? What are some things you're looking at that technology you think can add value to either your fleet directly or fleets like you?
So 5 years ago, I was invited to be a part of when the early Too Simple was still a thing, right? Too Simple is autonomous Class 8 trucks. Went down, looked at what they were doing, listened. They were really one of the first ones, right? Anthony Lewandowski and some of these other folks from Pronto and, what was Otto? There were some early stage ones that were getting some attention back in maybe 2019. But in 2020, looked at Too Simple, then we looked at Kodiak, then we looked at Embark, which is no longer around, and then Torque, Aurora. So we're kind of have partnerships with Aurora and Torque. But the idea of being an expedited fleet, so we cover long distances at night, is really a really interesting fit for autonomy. So talk about the ultimate AI, right? You've got a Class 8 truck that with the trailer and everything in it weighs 80,000 pounds. You're potentially going down the road without a driver. I mean, it doesn't get more AI than that. Yeah. Right. I mean,
it's pretty incredible.
So I've been in that world for the last 5 years. A lot of the things, John, I love about my job is I not only get to talk to our shippers, talk to our senior leadership, but I also go to all these meetings and I'm with JB Hunt, I'm with Werner, I'm with CR England, I'm with Schneider, I'm with all my competitors, right? People that I compete against, but we're all trying to look at technology. We're all trying to look at how this incredible thing called autonomous vehicles brings us all together, because we all need each other. We all need to buy trucks in order for it to be a sustainable solution for people. So, I get to be with my peers and my competitors at the same time.
It's an interesting perspective you say there, because on the one hand, people a lot of times say, what's the key competition against, for example, the kind of things we do? And a lot of times it's OEMs or providers trying to do everything themselves. And I think one of my observations is that trying to do everything yourself and trying to reinvent all the wheels is a great way to never deliver a solution.
Yeah.
You really need to share technologies and the kind of thing you're talking about, working with your competitors to find common solutions where it makes sense and compete where it makes sense, I think is an interesting balance.
Yeah. The whole rising tide floats all boats.
Right.
Well, the tide is a class of new solutions that weren't available before.
Right.
Aurora or Torque or Kodiak, they're not going to be, I just saw a demo. That's what, and Wabi, I don't want to leave her out, Raquel and her team at Wabi. But if they just have trucks to one provider, they're not going to be successful. They need to sell trucks to everybody.
Right.
And so we're working together to kind of figure out, what sorts of problems they haven't solved yet, are there things that we can do to work together, oddly enough, in order to make this work? So we currently don't have any. We're not testing any autonomous trucks right now. We're looking at it. We're always open to anything.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, your fleet, it sounds like for your fleet, you try to keep your trucks relatively a short time, and affects your methodology and how you do things. Obviously, different fleets have different mixtures of things. We were chatting earlier that, depending on the fleet's needs and depending on the missions of different fleets, they may have different approaches to, for example, maintenance, preventative diagnostics, and so on. What are some of the technologies you've seen that you think are interesting, rising technologies in this area?
What's interesting is you bring up the length of ownership.
Right.
Some of the investments that you can make in a truck, you have to own it for longer than 2 years in order to make it pay off. And so that's some of the challenge with just the way our trade cycle works. A newer truck is also a recruitment retention tool for us. And so there are a lot of reasons why it's 2 years for us. It's 3 years maybe for some of our competitors. But sometimes we have to pass on a technology because the payoff is exceeds the length of time we're going to own it. But electric APUs is something we've done. That's a device for the listeners that may not know what it is. It's a bank of batteries that lives under the seat of the sleeper cab, and it charges during the day while the truck is moving, and then at night it runs an air conditioner or a heating unit or an inverter for CPAC machines, so you don't have to run the engine.
Running, exactly.
Yeah, so you're not. A truck burns about 0.8 of a gallon of fuel per hour just idling. And then there's all the stuff coming out of the tailpipe, right? And there's that. But there's the rattling and there's the noise. And, then you've got about 50 other trucks that are around you all doing the same thing. Right. And it's just, you get out of your truck with 50 trucks idling. You're like, oh, what is this on my body? I just want to go to the bathroom.
So it's not very green. Yeah. It's not very cost efficient. And it makes noise for the driver trying to sleep.
But we do these because they cost justify themselves with both hard and soft cost over the period of ownership that we have the truck. So it's a really good fit for us. It's funny because there are probably better uses of capital as a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. But the way our leadership team looks at it, if we don't lose money and we don't make money, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the environment. It's the right thing to do for our drivers. It's the right thing to do sort of for the industry. And so that's an investment that we've made for a long time.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked earlier about data. I mean, data is the lifeblood of so many different technologies. And I think we were looking at some work we're showing here at the show about,
some
for
great,
example,
very impressive stuff.
Well, thank you. For example, monitoring driver distraction and
the safety stuff,
preventative maintenance, a number of things like that. What's data like to you, and how much, and with your IT background, how much does data kind of live and breathe for you all day long?
The devil's in the details, right? And the details is always, the data, right? Sometimes some of my friends, we get into arguments about, politics and sports and all kinds of different things. But I'm always saying, why do you believe, what's the data behind it? Like, tell me where you got that statistic. And sometimes people just don't know.
Right.
So you just made it up is what you're saying. So I'm a big data guy, right? I have a cup on my desk at home that says, without data, you're just another person with an opinion, right? Right? You want one?
I got
an extra one.
I love it.
Yeah. So, I'm all about it. I think without it, and by the way, my wife drives her nuts, when we get into a debate about something, and she's like, why do you feel that way? Like, I don't know, I just feel that way. I'm like, well, I'm a data guy. You got to give me an example of what you're talking about. So I'm a big data guy. So what you're doing here and what Snodus is doing is fantastic. I think sometimes as normal humans like I am, you're a PhD.
Double PhD,
Yeah. That's not me. But sometimes I need a tool like Claude or like some of the things you're working on to help me connect dots. I just recently uploaded 3 different spreadsheets into Claude. It was lane data, truck fuel stop location data, and some other data points because I was trying to figure out how to put all this together and create a graph. And I uploaded it in this thing and it helped me connect dots and data points that I really didn't think made sense. But once it did, 30 seconds later, I had a beautiful slide that I could show to the customer that answered the exact question they asked me to answer.
It's such an important point you make that when you have data, I like to say 1 + 1 = 3 or 1 + 1 = 7. If you have different data sources on their own, great. When you combine them, you can find insights that weren't easy to find. One of the things we're showing in one of the demos we showed you earlier was how we can take data from the vehicle that maybe they're getting from their data provider. It's existing data, but we combine it with other data that they don't have and add more value, add more, whether it's insight or diagnostics or anticipating failures or a range of things. But it's when you combine those data sources that you get to potentially new levels of insight. That's one of the things we're trying to focus on.
Yeah, I do a presentation on sort of innovation and disruption. Sometimes I get asked to do a keynote, but I have this slide that says data without context is meaningless. And so sometimes it's these extra data points, right, that independently don't mean anything, but together that provides context that we need in order to make the kind of decisions we have to make.
It's true. And we're showing another diagnostic product that probably is more targeted towards OEMs than less to yourself and your fleet customer. But one of the engineers that was working with us said that when we show them the analysis, we say, hey, we see that there's this thing, and we say, we think this is why your vehicle is failing. And then they say, but prove it to me. They say, here's why. We're showing you, here's the source data we came with. Here's your page 74 of your service manual. And here's the service history. And you put it all together like, aha, now I believe you. Yep. So it's the opposite of whatever the opposite of a hallucination is.
Yep.
It's showing our homework, showing the references that there's real meat there.
We use a product. Maybe it's a competitor, so I'm not going to use their name. But when they pitched it to us, he said, I'm going to give you an example of something that happened with somebody that we went live with. He said, we called a driver in the office. HR manager said, hey, I want you to sit down. We have a problem. And the guy had no idea what he was talking about. He said, our software says that you're going to have a wreck in the next 2 weeks. And he was like, what are you talking about? He said, remember Minority Report?
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's not one thing. You've had erratic time off.
Yeah.
The J132 port, whatever, the truck shows that you've had some curb strikes. You've had erratic acceleration. There is, you requested a different cycle in your pay. You asked for an advance on something. There was, you were late for some of your deliveries. You were late showing up for work. So independently, none of these things mean anything, but all this data lived in 6 different systems. Together, you put it all together. He said, what's going on? And the guy just looked at the HR manager and said, my dad is in the hospital and he's probably going to have to go to memory care. And I can't stop thinking about it. And he starts tearing up. And he says, I can't concentrate because I'm worried about my dad. And so that HR manager said, go take a week off, paid, go deal with this, come back to work and everything's going to be fine. So, reading the tea leaves and what the tools like you guys are developing are going to help safety departments, help HR departments solve those problems.
It's true. And, in safety and downtime and effective, it's all rolls together, right? Yeah. This guy now he's been taken care of. They've avoided potentially a wreck. They've avoided potential real life.
He loves it, or they love the company more.
Everyone wins.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes I think when you can add these solutions together, you can create, as I said, more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your favorite thing you've seen at the show here this week?
We're doing this Tesla Semi demo.
Yeah.
And I was there at the factory a few weeks ago, so I got to see it. But, here it's out in the hall. It's the new one, right? It's the production ready version. And so it's super excited to see that. International has this thing called the S13 engine, which is very, very, very different than the way traditional engines work. So there's better fuel economy. There's some cleaner aspects to it on the emissions. That's super cool to look at. But really, the hall just opened yesterday. So, after this podcast is over, I'm going to go out and walk the halls.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Absolutely.
I know you're busy.
Yeah.
It's great to hear perspectives like yourself. Your fleet needs are different than other fleets we talk to. And with the super valuable perspective, you were challenging us and giving us some great ideas a few minutes ago. So we're thrilled to have you and enjoy the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
If you like what you're seeing in this episode, please like and subscribe to see more like it from both shows like this and also from our home studio. We look forward to seeing you in another episode very soon.